Hello guys, so I used to watch a lot of Lagos real estate and it was always good fun. So over time I started to pick up on the real estate trends and the type of interior and exterior styles that dominated the market, which gave me a very nice glimpse into the Lagos real estate space. And obviously beyond just watching it on YouTube, I've seen some things live in the flesh as well. In this episode, I was also joined by the Plant Boy NG, and he's a great example of someone who's created their home with a lot of character, personality and greenery. So I'll be sharing snippets of our discussion throughout this video essay. So I wanted to share some observations on the Nigerian real estate space. It will primarily focus on Lagos, however. My general points are the fact that the real estate space is basically a showcase for materialist expression. And then on the other end, we have like this crazy predatory market. A lot of these homes that are being built by the developers don't make sense. But anyway, if you didn't know, Lagos has a wealth of luxury properties up for sale and you're going to love it. So post-colonial Nigeria has long grappled with its identity across political, social and cultural lines. And these struggles for stability paint almost every single door of Nigerian life, including the architectural scene and interior design. You'll think, what the hell has architecture and interior design got to do with the current social landscape? And it has a lot to do. The spaces that we inhabit and occupy are the biggest telltale. And in my opinion, the current Nigerian modernist designs have evolved into something rather eccentric, with one architectural critic describing it as Nigerian neo-classicism. I would say that the common styles that we tend to see in the architectural space and interior designs are characterized by very outlandish proportions and this almost grandiose style, for which I coin to be tacky luxury core. I remember when the Okoya family started coming out of their social media shell and they were revealing parts of their home. Naturally, people had opinions, some liked it, some didn't. I remember seeing a tweet with someone saying it's ugly and basically questioning why they had a bowling alley in the middle of what looked like to be a living space. Their home, in many ways, forgive me, is a prime example of what I would coin tacky luxury core. There isn't much in terms of character and personality. It's quite obvious that their home far exceeds the norm in terms of how people's houses are set up in Nigeria. Their home is to showcase that they are rich, hence the random bowling alley. Then you have figures like Colonial, whose home is quite different. He has his own personal style and flair, which is reflected in his home. And he's obviously someone who's quite well off, but clearly there's been an effort to characterize his home in a way that's quite reflective of his own identity outside of wealth. So I argue that the current Nigerian design is a reflection of materialism more than anything. Homes are no longer shaped by a cohesive vision or philosophy. Instead, they have turned into markers of class and luxury. As one critic notes, architectural practice in Nigeria and for most of Africa is largely bereft of any form of philosophy or ideology. And the growing classist and capitalist culture has completely exacerbated this. And they stripped the modern day Nigerian home of any kind of depth, as the focus is now shift from creating meaningful and functional spaces to basically just constructing vanity projects. So the homes are just put together, more or less, as long as it looks like luxury. And in my opinion, the real estate market mirrors a society that struggles with its identity and priorities. A lot of what we're seeing has a lot to do with values. It's about class values. It's about, perception in terms of what we believe or what Nigerians just generally believe luxury to be. Do you feel like the interior designs sums up our societal values in Nigeria, especially when it comes to like the type of homes that are being built as well in Lagos, like the close proximity homes, things like that? What do you think it says about our values?
Well, I think it's a reflection of, for me, I think it's a huge chunk of it is, I don't think, how do I put it? I think there's such an individuality drought here. I think being your own unique self is seriously lacking in this part of the world. And it really influences our choices and what we find valuable and what we aspire for. So, because honestly, with my slander, at one point I was slandering these Lagos developers. I was always coming for them, but I realized that honestly, They are just fueling the demand.
Yeah.
They are doing what Nigerians want.
Want. Yeah.
If they see that Nigerians like green spaces, huge verandas, ventilation, they will supply that.
Let's consider the pre-colonial homes. The homes and structures of pre-colonial Nigeria was not just shelters. They had meaning and they were a big part of community life. They were designed to be practical and purposeful for those who inhabited them. You'd find that local materials such as clay, mud and bamboo were used in the construction, and this made sure that the designs actually meshed with the environment and of course the tropical climate. And as I mentioned in my writing, this alignment with nature and the land can be linked to spirituality. As is common with so many different indigenous cultures, the Yorubas typically believe certain parts of their environment are sacred. Hence, pre-colonial homes can be seen as symbiotic between one's self and their environment. However, the colonial period disrupted this. The British administrators imported architectural styles that prioritize grandeur over cultural relevance, and this ultimately paved the way to status symbolism. Historically in Britain, those who were of the upper classes would have really grand estates, and they were in fact luxurious. So iconic structures like the Cathedral Church of Christ and the likes of Mapo Hall in Ibadan still stand today as imposed relics of status symbolism. Of course, Nigerian architecture also had a lot of influence from freed slaves from the likes of Brazil. That said, the establishment of government reserved areas, GRAs, in neighbourhoods like Ikoyi and Ikeja are visible reminders of the colonial approaches to space and, if I'm being really honest, good town planning. Until today, these areas signal exclusivity and class. These were places that were planned with some kind of afterthought. They had drainage, they had pavements. Nigeria is not very walkable because where are the pavements? Of course, you're going to find them here and there, but generally a good pavement is few and far between. In other countries, you can stroll for miles and you can exist outside of a car. But in Nigeria, walkability is like a luxury. And I do recognize that what I'm saying does come from a more international and diasporic lens, because of course people in Nigeria obviously they walk day in, day out. But just because they walk doesn't mean the situation is fine. No one should have to walk within inches of a moving car or feel the bonnet of a micra brush you as you try and get by. It's not very luxurious. With a lot of these walkways or pavements, there's also a lot of open sewage. The street should be safe, point blank, and pedestrians shouldn't be punished for existing outside of a car. The current real estate market is a lifeless caricature of luxury, with very little greenery, overburdened, gaudy aesthetics, and very awkward tight spaces. But it's luxury, so who cares? And to witness this in action, one only has to go online. The luxury designs are defined by very sterile, white tiled spaces, chandeliers, there's always going to be a chandelier, gold accents, oversized furniture, a smart lock on a very, very gigantic big door, those annoying color changing LED lights, paddling pools, and yes, paddling pools. I have a silent war against those so-called pools in those homes. What is the point of having a pool if it's not a decent size? I think they should be marketed as a paddling pool or some kind of outdoor tub, because that is no swimming pool.
This property is going for 630 million naira. Come with me, let me show you. You will love it. Look at the view. Look at the beautiful aesthetic. You will love it. At the entrance, you have a huge glass door. Come with me. This is your ante room. Damn. Look at the view. Look at the beauty. Look at your console. Look at the design. The aesthetic for aesthetic. You will love it. The chandelier. Come with me to the kitchen. You have your ukuta white. You will love it. This is your kitchen. Look at the island. Everything done there. Washing machine, heating refrigerator, oven, a microwave, everything done there. Come with me, let me show you more. This is the second floor where you have 3 bedrooms. Look at, here is your family lounge. You see, very lovely. Look at, the second floor is so massive. Look at the chandelier, look at the view. Come with me, let me show you this. On the second floor, you have 3 bedrooms. This is one of the rooms, very large. Look at, wow. Look at, just one of the rooms, so not the master bedroom. Not the main, just maybe like you want to give your children visitors. Look at. very nice, and all are ensuite, as you can see. You dey see am, come with me, let's go to the third floor. This is the staircase that leads to the third floor. It is so sexy, so beautiful. I love the way it lights up. Look at, damn, you will love it.
I did write, however, that at the end of the day, good design is subjective. Everything is essentially down to one's taste. But, big but, there are some universal truths on the matter. Homes, at the very least, should be functional and they should be contextually appropriate and reflective of the society it serves. So when evaluating the current trends in Nigerian interior and architectural design, one must ask my favourite question, and that's why. Why do these homes look the way that they do? What purpose do they serve in society? And what stories are they attempting to tell? Let's consider the Brutalist movement in post-war Europe. Emerging in the 1950s, Brutalism wasn't just an architectural style, it was very much a social critique. Its character was this very raw and imposing concrete form. The Brutalist style offered a rejection of elitism and ornamentation that defined earlier architectural periods. And for context, post-war Europe was experiencing a lot of hardship following the war, so there was a change in social attitudes and habits. So within the housing space, there was an effort to prioritise the needs of the masses, particularly the working class. And the Brutalist ideology had an emphasis on communal spaces and functionality, which in and of itself was an anti-bourgeois sentiment. By extension, it created a critique against capitalism, consumerism, and displays of wealth, which was very prominent prior to the war. Speaking of this, the 1004 blocks in VI is so similar to the type of council blocks we see in London. And I remember noticing it for the first time and I was like, oh my god, it literally looks like the old style of a London block of flats. And when I researched it, I found out that of course it was built in the 1970s and it is a type of brutalist architecture. Europe has since then moved on from brutalism. They are knocking a lot of these flats down and regenerating, many of which are being replaced by luxury high-rise apartments. Nonetheless, the brutalist era is a reminder of architecture's ability to essentially mirror society and also critique it. Nigerian architecture, by contrast, has succumbed to this very superficial idea of flamboyance, class, and that L word that I'm not going to say again. The self-proclaimed luxury properties of today is actually this kind of elitist ideology, as they are very disconnected from the environment and the people that they serve. The homes are designed to impress, not me though. They prioritize this superficial idea of grandeur and affluence, and it does appear to me that the modern day Nigerian home is an unsightly submission to capitalist aesthetics.
As a Nigerian, don't focus on making your home look expensive. That shouldn't be the focus.
Exactly.
The drive should be making it look uniquely like your own space. So I feel like when it comes to Nigeria, classism prevails everything. Everything. And it heavily influences how we design our homes and how we curate our spaces.
Yeah.
The luxury look here is something that looks evidently expensive. So I feel like a lot of Nigerians, when they are designing their homes, the goal is to make it look obviously expensive.
Yeah.
I want something that looks obviously expensive when people when people see the background, when I take a picture and post it on Instagram. I want people to have the impression that I have money.
Yeah.
I am wealthy.
Definitely.
So I am wealthier than them. So that is basically what the driving force of interior decor is here, even at the expense of sometimes even common sense.
It constantly points back to a culture of greed and confusion. I mean, for all the developers building those type of homes and estates, you have to be very confused. It's very clear that the primary focus is on profit as opposed to actually building meaningful homes. I mentioned in my last video that greed is found in every level of society, and in this regard we have greedy developers driven only by a desire to maximize their profits and also to create a very exclusionary real estate market. Granted, there is any setback rules anyway, it's clear that they're being disregarded. They pack as many units as they can onto one plot. homes packed like sardines. I know people joke online that soon in Lagos, neighbours will be able to touch each other from window to window because that's how tight it's getting. Face you and face me, but make it luxury, of course.
This culture of I want more, I want grand, I need money, more. That it really feeds into everything, and how we navigate spaces and all of that, which is very, very unfortunate. You see somebody, for example, that has a huge plot of land, that was probably inherited a huge plot of land, acres and acres, and their mentality is divided by so I can have as much money as possible.
Yeah, it's just this constant need to have more and more and more. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a price to pay.
Again, this exposes a systemic lack of interest in building proper homes. Homes that are purposeful, homes that are sustainable. And sustainability is so important. Lagos is flooding. Hello.
Lagos is flooding. What's your fault?
Lagos is flooding, exactly. It basically boils down to the marshlands, the lagoon, the mangroves that, since inception have helped to curb flood waters.
Yep.
They've mostly been reclaimed and sand-filled. So, I mean, these are the consequences.
Yep.
Those are honestly the consequences. And funny enough, like I said, these landlords, these developers are honestly not even bothered because they know at the end of the day, someone is going to rent that flooded house on the island.
Yeah, basically.
As long as it's on the island, someone is still going to rent it because living on the island gives you proximity to wealth and gives you the illusion that you're better off, you're wealthier off than the average Nigerian. So even if you have to wait on the occasional flood, someone is going to rent that apartment.
And I think that's exactly what's going on. Someone's going to rent it anyway. Who cares?
I think the worst part of the whole luxury tag and luxury real estate is the fact that we're all looking and we can't see it. Where's the luxury? Luxury where? And no, Lagos is not the New York of Nigeria. And we can't discuss the lack of space and cramped spaces without touching on the disappearance of compounds. During my research, I came across a thesis from the 1980s titled The Problems of Housing in Lagos. It's incredibly extensive and it covers quite a lot of issues ranging from environmental and cultural regarding the housing situation during that time. And it was about 400 pages and I had the pleasure of going through all of that, so please like and subscribe. My following points do have a Yoruba focus, however I'm sure it's going to apply to other groups too. Please let me know in the comments if they do. The writer states, the compound was a social unit which was formed to satisfy the social needs of its users. He develops this point noting, the structural breakup of the compound due to the diminished importance of the courtyard as a social structure coincides with the birth and the rise of the nuclear family. New family structures consequently led to the destruction of traditional architectural models. And that extract is fascinating. It tells us that the colonial era, through its introduction of Christianity, and by extension the nuclear family, ironically led to the breakdown of community life. Society then became less collectivist and less communal. The thesis continues by stating, British missionaries introduced new principle of family organisation, the nuclear family. The existing space was modified according to a new model of family organisation. The whole compound was no longer necessary for living. One room was enough to accommodate the nuclear family, and the density rose. The influence of missionaries in changing the society should be considered as an important factor, since they were not only involved in introducing Christianity to native people, but also in various social activities. And then on top of this, there's also the element of capitalism. The writer suggests that the benefits of trading materials such as palm oil, cocoa, put a lot of money in the hands of some. And of course, not everyone in the extended family benefited equally. Increasingly, varied exports of palm oil, palm kernel, cocoa, groundnuts and cotton had served to put substantial sums of money in the hands of many individuals. However, the economic progress of individuals did not mean uniform progress amongst all members of an extended family. The differences of income and wealth began to give rise to differences in taste, standards of living, and expectations. It was more visibly reflected in the strains and stresses which were imposed on the form and design of compounds. As with the enclosure of movement in British agriculture in the 19th century, the improving members of the family were anxious to break up the compound and to enclose and improve their position of it. Yeah. So essentially, the differences in income led to a more individualistic sense of living, whereby those who were well off wanted to enclose themselves as opposed to sharing with less well off family members. And it's funny because I do think money does tend to do that. I've had this discussion many times and I've asked the question to others as well. And the question is basically, if you won the lottery, would you tell anyone? And I get mixed responses, but I do believe the general consensus is not really. So there is something to be said about people wanting to isolate themselves or make themselves a little bit more discreet when they've come into wealth, and they will carve out a space for themselves. To reiterate, I do think it's a bit of a paradox that Christianity introduced a nuclear family, of course, and that essentially broke up communal life, but at the same time it makes so much sense. And traditionally, people were majorly polygamous. They had big families, they had multiple wives, hence multiple children as well, so there would have been a big family life. And the capitalism aspect is almost self-explanatory. Again, people start to feel a type of way when it comes to money, so it makes sense that people became more individualistic.
There's that individuality drought that is so prevalent here, and a huge part of it, this is where we're getting deep. I think it's a fallout of colonization.
Yeah.
How the Westerners came in, and Africans, we used to be so unique, even down to our hairstyles, our way of doing things was always uniquely ours. And they came in and they told us, you have to conform. This is how you have to do it in this way.
Yeah.
And even down to our school system.
Yes.
We had to wear uniforms. Girls had to shave their hair.
Yeah.
The boys had to have the same haircut and everything. So all those things, they put seeds of conformity. They just almost dim our individuality.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the point that we're all about follow.
When, you have a culture whereby people can't express themselves freely or they get told off for doing so, then you are just going to get a society that just does everything the same. And nobody wants to be an outcast.
Also, people are complaining about windows. They want windows. Where are the windows? People want large windows. They want windows that can actually draw in some ventilation, some fresh air. I know that that's now a luxury in Lagos, but please, we're begging. I remember seeing this tweet ages ago asking why we don't have really large windows like that. And of course, a lot of it is down to insecurity. Just like the fact that we have to fence ourselves in with very tall walls and barbed wire. Insecurity is the bastards of all bastards. But I must say that these windows may not actually be the best thing for the climate. Windows, they conduct heat, so it may get really, really hot. But there are ways around that, of course. But please, the windows that are being made, they need to stop. Where are the rules and regs? So I now hate the word luxury, courtesy of the Lagos real estate market. I'll have you know that you completely bastardized that word, thank you. We have luxury this, we have luxury that. What is luxury? Academics don't even seem to agree on one single definition of luxury, so that's great. And the term itself spans across multiple school of thoughts. As Cornell observes, luxury is particularly slippery to define. Generally, economics equate luxury with anything that exceeds necessity. So from this perspective, luxury will be any product or service priced well above its functional value. So its value is more symbolic than anything, not necessarily because the good is that valuable. For example, buying a Louis Vuitton suitcase for £4,000, that's just going to be thrown about on a conveyor belt when you reach Murtala Mohammed Airport. At the end of the day, it's just a suitcase. It doesn't necessarily warrant a price tag of 4K. That price tag clearly exceeds its functional value. Now, sociologists frame it a little bit differently. Bourdieu argues that luxury reflects the taste of the elites, and its function is to demonstrate their power and impose their taste on others in society, which I think is agreeable. And from the sociological perspective, luxury has traditionally functioned as a form of elitism. Luxury is something that is enjoyed and consumed by the elite, not just any Tom, Dick and Harry. When we contextualize that to Nigeria, we start to see this really odd situation where inequality and luxury start to dance together. Things that ought to and should be basic necessities are reclassified as luxuries. I saw a TikTok video by a luxury realtor, and I found it really strange and concerning that he suggested creating private spaces.
In Abuja, you get gardens, but in Lagos Island, you get parking lots. I just got back from a weekend in Abuja, and every time I'm there, I end up surrounded by greenery. And even though on Lagos Island the market is booming, the ground level greenery is disappearing. On a 1,000 square meter plot, developers squeeze parking on the ground floor and build straight up. Although our company is finding options. A $1 million penthouse with foliage on the balcony. Orange Island with mini parks as part of the master plan. So just like in Abuja, I'm on a mission to show you how and where the natural beauty of Lagos comes alive. But these are rare, so we may need to start by curating our own private spaces.
And I believe it highlights Baudrillard's point. The ascendancy of the urban and industrial milieu is producing new examples of shortages of space and time, fresh air, greenery, water, silence. Certain goods which were once free and abundantly available are becoming luxuries accessible only to the privileged. Also, where are the free beaches? Yeah, exactly. Why can't I be on the island and easily access a beach? It's an island, for the love of God. It's not all the time we're going to be doing private beach house in Elisha. I remember 20 years ago now being in Lagos and my older cousins taking us all out to the beach. For the life of me, I can't remember which beach it was, but it was a public beach and it was just the best day. But fast forward 20 years later, God forbid anyone wants to go to a beach. You have to cough up a pretty penny to access any form of beach. And for someone who loves beaches, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I digress. I think it's very weird that we have these players in the market who are attempting to produce a higher tier of luxury than what is already marketed. But by doing so, they're very parasitic and exclusionary. Mind you, a lot of these developments, such as the likes of Eco Atlantic, are contributing to environmental issues, such as coastal erosion. All the sand filling that is required for these projects are absolutely awful for the environment. And it's been reported that 84% of Lagos's shoreline has been eroded in the last half of the century. Nice work. And of course, luxury and materialism are sisters. Borowski defines materialism as an infatuation with physical objects over intellectual or spiritual experiences and relationships. Does that ring a bell, Nigeria? Indeed, these materialist ideas have found their way into the Nigerian home space, whereby the majority of the market is in fact a spectacle. And it's at this point that we begin to see a detachment of Nigeria's social cultural realities in our physical space. I want to speak about greenery, or the lack of, and I will be driving this point to death. Where are the greens? Please. Lagos, concrete jungle. And we can laugh about it and make jokes about it, but it's not funny. The lack of greens is a serious environmental and cultural concern. First of all, it holds the perception that nature is primitive or rural, and is very incompatible with modernity and city life.
Nigerians don't want that because it reminds them of the village.
Exactly.
It's associated,
exactly.
Yeah. It's associated with the village. It's associated with, oh, when I was poor in the village. So now they will go for concrete and interlocking. Yep. That's just our rationale. But what we don't realize is that it defies common sense, and it just makes us look like we don't know better.
Also, I believe it exposes a lack of maintenance culture. Even in Ibadan, where there is land for days. People are getting rid of trees in established developments. The greenery is missing. In my parents' home in Ibadan, they do have greenery, and I say this pridefully. Shout out to mum and dad. However, it does require maintenance. You constantly have to sweep and tend the compound. You also have to tend to the plants as well, especially during the rainy season. Hence, it's quite obvious why a lot of people do tend to get rid of the trees, because they probably just don't want the work. But despite that, I do think it is quite ridiculous. Even if it's just one, if you have the land and space, have just one tree. And not only do I find it aesthetically pleasing, it also provides shade, and we need shade. We literally have a hot country. And on the plus side, if you have a fruit tree, you have fruits. But again, if you don't have the space, you can always start by doing things where you can pot your plants and you can grow some fruits or veggies. And this is where I absolutely recommend checking out the Plant Boy. So strangely, we now have a bunch of artificial plants, synthetic grass and front yard tiling, which is incredibly insane to do in a country that is tropical.
And one thing I really hate are the green, like, artificial grass patches that they keep doing.
Oh, Jesus. This is where, like, I say, like, you know, I believe in the trauma response, because it defies common sense, because those plastic atrocious things, they almost have become status symbols now.
Right.
Because they're quite expensive. If you want to buy any one of those plastic trees or those, they're expensive. They are so-called luxury designers that include that in the services that they offer.
Okay.
They install these plastic plants for you. So it's, to me, and subconsciously, Nigerians see it as a status symbol. Well, let me get this plastic monstera that cost, the interior decor person told me, was 200,000 naira. So I'm just going to put it there.
More so, the absence of greenery in Lagos can pretty much be linked to the smell. They're saying Lagos is smelling. And if I'm being honest, I've also smelled the smell. It's not a lie. It's not a drill. Lagos is smelling.
This is the place I call a deodorized city.
How do you mean?
When something they smell, you can't put deodorant. When you know go bath first.
Then it makes it bad.
Yeah, so it will be smelling. The odor would they fight the deodorant. So that's what Lagos is. Lagos is a glorified deodorized city. This is not, I mean, a Lagos that you cannot go from one part of it to the other is very dirty. It's dingy. It's dark, mostly at night. It has no transportation, no mass transit. It has no drainage. It has no sewage.
Wow.
Do you know what it means for cities to be called cities?
So there's no city in Nigeria?
Well, it's just like asking me if there's a 5-star hotel in Nigeria. Probably not.
One academic paper stated, the global economy is driven by a desire for more exploitation of the natural resources of the environment, and this has led to increased pollution and destruction of land and caused harmful conditions. In a materialist culture, there is pressure to consume more in life. Materialists see no need to improve their behaviour towards the environment, as they see the environment as a mere matter for human exploitation. For some balance, in 2008, Lagos State under ex-governor Fashola launched a tree planting campaign, and the aim was to plant 1 million trees in 10 years. By 2013, Fashola stated that they had planted 4.6 million, which of course sounds great. But fast forward 10 years plus, it's hard to see the impact of that. The trees do seem to be declining, and unfortunately there's very little information and data as to what happened when the campaign ended. If someone has Fashola's email, send it to me. One thing that really stands out to me is the pricing. The overpricing of homes have become a major issue in Lagos. So many homes are sold at incredibly high prices, and dare I say, it's priced way above its functionality and quality. And I think this is happening for a number of reasons. Speculative real estate is one, inflation, greed, and a tendency to market to the wealthy only, and to also wash money. Realtors will literally justify the high prices by telling you that there's a scarcity and the cost of land is high. Okay, the property prices are just ridiculous, and it's disconnected from the average Nigerian's economic situation. It's unaffordable, end of. The average working class person's income in Lagos is around 2 million naira a year. Where is the good quality affordable housing? Asking for myself. Again, the housing market isn't built for community, and it's not built to actually house the majority of the population. Why else do we have Makoko? If not to host a December tour of the area and also the additional poverty porn. Capitalism wins again. The short-lit economy and Dirty December, they're bastardizing the market.
Look at Dirty December. Are you not proud of Dirty December? That Lagos is now known for Dirty December. Is that airport, that old airport, you want to bring people in all over the world to do Dirty December in Lagos? When they land, they see the heat at the airport. When they land, they go to airport they go to toilet that is smelling.
One thing I have noticed again, which I think is quite obvious, is that the homes are built with the diaspora in mind. The realtors want foreign buyers. That is their market. And as a result, it just pushes the property market up. The diaspora will buy it for various reasons, especially for Airbnb purposes. And it contributes to gentrification, much like London. Not too long ago, there was this argument on Twitter regarding a home renovation. On one side of the coin, people are complaining that they've basically made it look like a short let and it's completely spent and it lacks character. And then the other side were basically saying, shut up, why are you guys all complaining? It looks a lot better than it was before. And to be fair, I do understand both sides. It does have that short let Airbnb character, but I guess objectively it's better than it was before. Finally, final thoughts. Nothing exists in isolation. The concept of the home is as much as a psychological one as it is physical. Yet the common designs that we're now seeing reflects a society that is preoccupied with class elitism. Homes have essentially been reduced to mere status symbols. The concrete landscaping and tiles, coupled with the artificial plants, have a very dystopian-like barrenness, and there's a deliberate neglect of spaces that nurture community and also provide ecological balance. So as Nigerian society continues to evolve, it's worth questioning, what values do we have? How are they mirrored in our built environment? These spaces are more than just dwellings. They're also ideological. They tell us the story of who we are and who we aspire to be. If our homes, and also by extension our cities, are reduced to mere symbols of luxury, what does that tell us about the Nigeria that we are building? Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that it was informative and it gave a lot to think about. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also share. Do not gatekeep my video essays. Someone on my last video essay commented, I wish you can post every day. Girl, I wish I could too. Hence why you should like and subscribe so my channel can grow. Anyways, I will see you guys next time.